So very pleased to see everybody here at the AGM this year, and this will be recorded as a video as well, which we'll put out to the members. So welcome if you're watching the video. So looking forward, I think it's also important for us to think about where we are. And I think that as a community, to actually understand where we are and what phase we're in our development is going to be really key for us to understand as a community how to move forward to move to a place where we want to be. The BAcC is 30 next year. I said that there's actually been a lot of 30-year anniversaries. EJOM, the Bristol Herb Garden, and now the BAcC next year is 30. 30 is quite an interesting age, and I think actually it's quite reflective of where we are, that kind of transformation in human terms. And I'll let you know what I think about why I think that in a moment. I think this is a really valuable metaphor that came to me while in my previous role as the CEO of the RCHM, but I think it really applies to all of us in our community, that we inherit something as Chinese medicine practitioners. We inherit this great tradition. It's been there a long time before we were born, and hopefully it will be there a long time after we pass on too. And so we're really just caretakers. We're stewards of a tradition. And I think that it's very much like a ginkgo tree. Ginkgo trees are ancient prehistoric trees. This one in the picture is planted in 1762. So I know that some of us are getting on a bit, but I don't think anyone was around in 1762. So this was planted before we were all born. And it will be there after we pass on too. And if we think about that tree as the whole of Chinese medicine, the over 2 millennia of history that Chinese medicine has from East Asia. And we took this little sucker, it's called, when you take a little part of a plant, I'm reliably informed, and we planted it over here in the UK. And we planted it, let's say really starting in, say, the 60s and moving on. And it's been growing. And what we have here is it started in kind of a baby tree, then moved through adolescence, and now, well, we could say it's now roughly 30. Okay, that's where we are. And so we have this tree right now that we're all looking after. And I think that that's an important way for us to look at things, is that we are temporarily looking after this. And it's our responsibility, because it's only here because people looked after it in the past. It's the thousands of years of people taking care of it and developing it and cultivating it in Asia. And then it's the last, say, 60 years here in the UK and 30 years with the BAcC. And the gardeners, that's all of us. So we all have that responsibility. And ultimately, I think that's one of the most important things that draws us to the BAcC, because the BAcC is an organization that I think that one thing we can all agree on is an organization that really wants to do things in a way with integrity and do things the right way, and to really properly look after all aspects and all considerations of the great medicine that we hold. That's what attracted me to this job. And that's why I felt really motivated that to help continue that, to help to cultivate it, but also for the BAcC is it's a conductor, it's a lightning conductor for all of our energies to take care of this thing that we have. So there's a good question of where are we now, and what's the difference at 30 than at birth when we planted the tree, and then in kind of the teenage phase. And it's kind of interesting where we are now, because in many ways, if we actually say where we are and where acupuncture is now, it was kind of, we could, the way we describe it is almost dream beyond dream for previous generations, even though sometimes it doesn't feel that way, which is kind of odd, because we've really achieved the BAcC a real gold standard. The BArB education accreditation is a gold standard. We have the Professional Standards Authority accreditation is an absolute gold standard. And even within the PSA, of all the complementary medicine bodies in the PSA, we're regarded as the gold standard of the complementary medicine accredited registers. We really have the highest standards within them. We have incredibly high governance standards, as I've learned in my 3 months in the organization. Our operations our staff culture, everything, really high standards. And that gives us this enormous respect through the UK, which has really been achieved, and we have to acknowledge that, and respect across Europe. We're interestingly enough, talking to our European colleagues, they look at the BAcC as the gold standard. So we've really achieved that. And also the perception of acupuncture. At some point, something shifted. At some point, there isn't really a single person out there who doesn't think that acupuncture does something. They might describe it in a different way, but people generally accept it does something. A lot of people think it does a lot. I think that there's probably not a single person or very few people in the UK who haven't had acupuncture themselves, or at least have a close friend or family member who's had it. This is a pretty extraordinary circumstance. If we go back 30, 60 years, that would be unthinkable. Obviously, we've got the nice guidelines, we've got more concrete research behind us. So the perceptions really, really changed. Communities matured. The caliber of our members, our training, the experience that we've had, the understanding of how to implement acupuncture and how to integrate it into society. We don't want to underestimate how far we've come, and our exposure to all sorts of different styles of practice and thinking. So if that is the case, why don't we all feel like that? Why don't we all feel that we've arrived? It's quite interesting, because these are goals that if we were to relate them to someone 30, 60 years ago, they wouldn't have imagined that it could have been this way. And this is the way that I really think about it. This is something that's developed in my previous role and in this role, is that there's a difference in the mentality and feeling when you're in different phases of growth. When you're in that pioneer stage, which is 30 to 60 years ago, where we're building this thing, that you're going from nothing to something, it's pretty exciting. And everybody agrees which way is forward. If you go from no colleges to some colleges, that's forward. It's pretty clear. There's no disagreement there. Also, a smaller community has this kind of sense of togetherness, a sense of self, and also a smaller growing community. You can see yourself going forward. You have this sense of moving forward. Everyone did. And you speak to people who were around at that time, and they all tell you there was this feeling of moving forward. And they all, a lot of them say, I don't feel the same way right now, which is interesting, considering where we are in this kind of period of relative success. And so I think that there's a perception, and it's not by everybody, certainly. And I don't think actually it's the reality, but there's certainly a perception that we're spinning our wheels in some way. And I want to explore that a little bit. Partly in our phase right now, it's this maturing phase. We're actually having to realize the reality of what it takes to go from 3,000 members up from there. It's a completely different challenge. What's the challenge of going from this kind of widespread acceptance to actually delivering it on a widespread level in the NHS, in all sorts of contexts, and actually making it land? By the way, someone mentioned in the chat that we didn't come from nothing. I absolutely agree. Understand that. The BAcC was formed out of 5 organizations. What I meant is 60 years ago, there was nothing. 30 years ago, there was absolutely something that was being built up. So we have kind of a real diversity of thought now, which is one of our strengths, I think. And we have a larger community that's also pretty diverse, but it often finds itself in different pockets. Even within the BAcC, people find themselves in different sub-communities in different pockets. And so sometimes we don't feel that same sense of togetherness. And then we've had all these historical setbacks. We didn't get statutory regulation. COVID happened. Tuition fees came in. Colleges closed. These things that give this sense that, I makes us question, are we moving forward? So we have this perception of direction and this perception of division. And as I say, it's a perception. I'm not sure it's actually the reality, but it's a perception. And I think that leads us quite rightly to questioning and to introspection. And I think that's where we've been for a while. A lot of us have been thinking, where is forward? What do we do? Now, we are moving forward. I really believe. I think the reality is we're making really great strides, and sometimes you don't see it. we have a lot of forward momentum, and I really want to highlight some of the incredible work that BAcC has been doing in that regard. But I do think that these questions are there, and it's right that we question, because I think that we want to find a way forward together. But I do think the questioning phase, we do need to find a way to resolve it, to properly explore those questions, answer them, and move forward. Because if we can answer those questions as a community to our high standards, to the high standard of what we hold ourselves to and our organizations to, but if we can do that, we can really pull together. And I think then what we can achieve is boundless. And that's where I really want to get to. If we get to a point where we agree on the fundamentals, we can really land this integration into the public sector, but also into the private sector. Everybody has a different vision of how they want to expand, but I mean, really make this medicine land in greater and greater ways. And I really want to respect the work that has been done to make it land in many areas. So I'm not saying that it hasn't, but I think we can do more. We can expand more. I think that there's also, I think that in a certain sense, we've only really begun to actually articulate the full range of what we do and what we offer, and finding that language to really connect with the public. That's something that's really key as well, something that we can really achieve and really land the true promise of Chinese medicine. I think that we can actually really solidify our career structure too. This is something that comes up a lot. I think that a lot of practitioners find it challenging to make their careers in acupuncture. And I think that by coming together and really agreeing on the fundamentals, we can focus on really creating clear career paths for ourselves. And we can achieve a more and more vibrant community as we go along, and really have a sense of greater and greater sense of joy and connection, which we already really do have, but we can amplify it, and we can be connected across our different sub-communities, and we can be across cultures too. So I think we're closer than we think. So how are we going to do it? So what I propose is that we are going to address all of those fundamental questions that we have head on. And so there's going to be a new series, and this series is called BAcC Direct. And I've written a blog on it. I've announced it last week. And really, it's a new monthly webinar series where I or myself and others who I'll bring in will address a different hot button topic each time. All the questions that you ever want answered, we're going to address absolutely head on. You'll get a bit of an inside track. As you know, I'm a practitioner myself, but I've also been running professional membership organization before, and now with the BAcC. And there's a lot of things that you discover from the inside, and I want to be able to turn that outside so everybody can see. Everyone can see why the decisions are made, and how the organizations work, and really learn the reality behind it. Because one thing I think that's brilliant about the BAcC is it's always oriented itself to the reality of situations, and not tried to lead people into thinking something that would please them. It's to actually orient them to the reality, because it's only when we address reality we can really make progress. But in addition to that, there will be every session, there'll be a live unrestricted Q&A. Just like today, you'll be able to ask any questions about all of these topics. So what topics are we going to talk about? So this is what's already scheduled for the year. The first one, on 30th of September, the value of being a member. We're going to go into the membership fee, but we're also going to go into what that gets you, and why the organization is structured how it is. So here, I hope that you'll really get really good answers. I've not only run a smaller membership organization in the RCHM, but now I spent 3 months digging through the whole of the BAcC, all its operations, its accounts, finances, to really get the answers, to really understand why. I've questioned every single budget line, every single decision that we've made in the past, to try and understand why it is that our budget is how it is. And actually, there are really good answers and they're really important answers. And I think that we should know. But again, you will have the opportunity to challenge me and to ask any questions during this BAcC Direct. I'll also be answering the question we get asked a lot. Why does it seem that some organizations seem to be able to claim that they can do something that appears to be the same for less money? And there will be concrete answers to that. The second one we just added in last minute because we really want to address this ongoing issue is an update on Welsh licensing. It's a really difficult issue, and we want to be really continue our conversation, particularly with the Welsh members, but any member that's interested is welcome to come along. We have one positive development that's just happened. You may know that there's this new licensing scheme coming in Wales. After our lobbying efforts and our communications with the people running the process, they have now confirmed to us that there will be no restrictions on the home visit. So this is a very positive development, which we're very happy about. But we also know that it's couched within a licensing proposal which will cost members time and money. And so, it's a mixed bag, unfortunately. But you will get the update on this. And we'll continue to engage with members and we'll continue to engage with the Welsh Government as well on this issue. And we'll see what progress we can make as we go forward. On 23rd of October, the Direct will be on the trust we project as members in all different facets. This will also be an opportunity for you to ask all your questions about the PSA. And I've had a very interesting journey with the PSA. The previous organization that I was in, the RCHM, was not a PSA member. This organization is. I've also had the great fortune to meet with some of the upper echelon of the PSA, including the CEO and the chair, and their comms director, head of accreditation. And I've been able to see at all levels how the PSA actually operates. And I think there are things that you'll find out in this session that you may not have known before. But this will be a session to really assess the reality of it. I think that there are things that the PSA has really achieved its promise. And I'm very hopeful. From what I've seen, I'm very hopeful with the PSA. And there are also things where we would hope it had been delivered more, but you'll get the honest take from me when we're in this session. November is NHS Integration Month. I'm going to go into that a little bit more depth in a moment. So the BAcC Direct in November will be about NHS integration. And in December, we're going to actually do a session where we're reflecting on our experience during COVID, because I think there's a lot of learning points there. And I think that it's important for us to have a conversation with each other about what happened. Right now, the heat is out of the situation. The stress is out of the situation. It's a good time to reflect on it. I think, as you may know, I was quite involved with the BAcC and the RCHM approach to COVID when the policies that were developed at that time. So I'll be able to give a bit of an inside track on that era, and maybe reveal some things that you may not have known, some of the things that were happening behind the scenes, some of the reasons why certain things were done. But also importantly, you'll get to have your voice and about that whole process. And this isn't about just painting everything in a good light. We want to learn, have a 360 learning from this experience. We want to hear from members. We want to hear the difficulties that you had, and we want to learn for the future, because touch wood, we'll never have a pandemic again. But if we do have some kind of crisis, I think that learning from this will enable us to come together more strongly in the future. So I think it's really important to be doing that. So that's the directs that we're going to have towards the end of the year. Now, you will notice there's quite a few. You don't have to come to them all, just the ones that really pull you in. I really hope that you do come to some of these. The bit where I do the presentation will be recorded, so you won't have to come to them all to actually view them. But if you want to take part in the Q&A and hear the Q&A, then you have to come live to the session. So those are the BAcC's directs recorded for later viewing. Q&As if you attend live, and they'll be continuing into 2025. I mentioned NHS Integration Month, and this is really about, say, communicating the great strides that have been taken place. And this is something that I give the full credit to all those who were working on this before I came on. I just get to report on this. So I don't take any credit at all. I'm just really happy to be able to report on the real success of the what's been happening in this regard. Fleur, Jenny, and Wendy, with Ian's support, have done this fantastic acupuncture project within the NHS and in the Gloucester, and they will be presenting on 6th of November their experiences and their learning points from this. On 13th of November, Ian and I will do a BAcC Direct. We'll be talking about some of the exciting aspects of the NHS strategy, but also some things that we really have to understand as a membership, and to also temper our expectations as well, because working in the NHS has its great advantages and great promise, but at the same time, it has great challenges. So this will be something that we'll really be exploring in that session. And then finally, on 20th November, we're going to have a great big community conversation about it, because we know, and we have enormous respect and appreciation for all the members who've been working in the NHS for decades, people who've found their own ways in and have had their own experiences. So we're going to open this conversation out to the membership so we can collectively understand what it means at the moment, where we are. We're really on the cusp of something where the opportunities are there if we know how to take them. The challenge right now is how we meet those challenges that those present. And this conversation we're going to have is a much more open, interactive conversation on 20th November, where we get to hear from members across the membership who've been working in the NHS. And that's the second part of the announcement today, is community conversations. So the first was BAcC Direct, but community conversations is about you. It's about having the important conversations where members take the lead and we can learn from each other. BAcC can learn from the membership, but members can learn from each other, and importantly, they can support each other. And we can actually shape the future together. And I think that becoming aware of the amazing community that we have is a really key part of this. And understanding that the community is here. The community is here in the BAcC. We have this incredible community. And I just think that the more that we can see each other, the more we can really achieve something fantastic for the future. So the two community conversations this year, there's one which is already scheduled. This is the end point of the conference. We had vision boards made by students at different colleges about their hopes, dreams, and aspirations for the future. And at the end point of this process, we're inviting all members from both organizations, BAcC and RCHM, that produced the conference, to come together in a Zoom meeting to discuss their own visions, hopes, and aspirations. This is a really good opportunity for us to let each other know how we see the future, what looking forward means. And then on 20th November, as part of the NHS Integration Month, we're going to have that big community conversation about how we support each other working in the NHS. Into 2025, not announcing them at the moment, but I just want to say, research is a huge focus. It's something that we really want to continue supporting within the BAcC, so watch this space. And also education is another big conversation that I think should be something that we're talking about. On the research front, I just want to quickly highlight an upcoming event. We've talked about it on e-news. It's the World Federation of Acupuncture and Moxibustion Societies International Symposium on Acupuncture and Moxibustion, quite a mouthful. But what is it? It's actually the biggest global acupuncture conference, including countries from all over the world, huge Chinese presence too. And it's in the UK for the first time. So it's pretty special. The ATCM and British Medical Acupuncture Society have been taking the lead in organizing it, and the BAcC has been in support as a co-badged sporting organization. I know that the price looks a little high, but I just wanted to highlight it because this is something where there's going to be an enormous amount of research presence. Our very own Ian Appleyard is going to be presenting. But it's pretty unique that this big global conference is coming to the UK. It's coming to London. So I just do recommend that. There's a 15% discount for BAcC members if you want to go along. So finally, what about our tree? What about this tree that we planted? How do we take care of that? We've talked about the BAcC and understanding in and out, inside and out, how it works, why things are where they are. We've talked about our community, how we can support each other. But what about the tree? So finally, one last thing. There's going to be a new regular video interview series, and this is called Cultivating Tradition. The first one's already been released. So if you check your e-news, there's a link in there. Some of you may recognize the person I'm talking to in the picture. That's Cinzia Scorzon. She's a beloved acupuncture teacher. Used to teach at Westminster. She also did field work interviewing some of the primary figures who developed TCM and modern acupuncture in China. So this is a wide-ranging conversation. These are kind of longer, in-depth conversations to understand our history, interviews across our membership, how we got here, where we should go, understanding the diversity of our tradition, but also importantly, how we come together too. So we can embrace the diversity of our approaches, but understand our common parts too, and have this conversation so we can all see each other. We can see each other in this community, and we can understand how we move forward. Cinzia's is live in a couple of weeks. Volkerscheid will be the next one. The background is Tuscany. I just spent a week studying with them both in Italy. So there's a very nice background to the videos, but I really recommend you view them. And these will be regular, and they'll be across the membership. There'll be prominent figures, but also regular members, new practitioners, students. We want to see everybody represented. I also want to highlight, Deb's here today, that this is only one of two videos member interview series. Deb has a series with ACU, in conversation with, and they're both absolutely going to go into depth with members. The difference is the Cultivating Tradition one is more of those serious questions about our future and who we are, and those questions. Whereas Deb's, you can correct me if I characterize it wrong, Deb, but these are really warm, personal conversations, no holds barred conversations where members really get to express who they are. So there's kind of two aspects of our membership that we're going to have with these two video series going forward. And the wonderful thing about that is that these three initiatives, plus Deb's, plus all the aspects of what the BAcC offers, including ACU and EJOM, the conference, the Deb's videos, our CPD campaigns. This is all going to express itself into our 30th anniversary, which is next year. It's a really special time for us to understand where we are and where we are moving forward. And through all of these things, we can actually see more and more each other as a community in the BAcC, and learn from each other. And through that collective great knowledge and that wisdom, I think it will not only will be able to learn and understand our future direction, but it also feel pretty good to be in this community, because I think we deserve to feel good. This is a fantastic community, and there's many of us here who know quite a lot of the community, and I'm really excited in this job because I get to talk to all of you, and we get to communicate, and we get to build something. And there is something that we can build with that new momentum, which is really exciting. And next year is also the year where we're going to be developing our strategy for the next 5 years. So it's all coming together at the same time, 30 years, all of this at the same time. So what I hope is that when you see these things listed, that you come and engage, because by engaging, we can learn from each other, and we can really manifest that great vision for acupuncture as we go forward. So there's a lot there, but there is more to come. So watch this space. There's some announcements coming which are really going to hopefully open up our community and bring us together even more. And again, just want to finish by giving a massive thank you to, I'm very humbled by what I'm inheriting coming on here. Fantastic governing board. really want to say a big thank you to the governing board members that are standing down as well. That's Pia and Susan and Leanne and Julie and Samantha, who's already stepped down as well, plus all the staff as well, who've been working really hard behind the scenes. And they're responsible in no small part for some of the great successes the BAcC have had. And it's a real joy to work with them going forward. And I'm really looking forward to working with the new directors too.